What do you do when your empire rules the seas, but you suddenly can't afford the ships that made it great? This was the dilemma Britain faced during the darkest years of World War II. The mighty Royal Navy, once the pride of the world, was stretched thin, its great aircraft carriers too few, too slow to build, and too precious to risk. The ocean was alive with danger. German U-boats, Luftwaffe bombers, and the endless waves of convoy battles in the Atlantic. Britain needed carriers, but they had neither the time nor the steel to build them the old way. So the question became, how do you create an aircraft carrier when you can't build an aircraft carrier? That's when the British mind, famous for turning desperation into innovation, came alive. Engineers, shipbuilders, even ice scientists, yes, ice scientists, began sketching ideas that sounded closer to science fiction than reality. Some proposed converting merchant ships into escort carriers. Others whispered about creating floating runways made of wood, concrete, or even frozen water. Anything to give aircraft a place to land anywhere in the world. The first answer came from the humble merchant fleet. These were ordinary cargo ships repurposed in shipyards across Britain and Canada. They were called MAC ships, merchant aircraft carriers. Imagine a ship still carrying grain or oil, but with a flight deck built right on top of it. A working cargo ship and a mini aircraft carrier combined. The crew below handled cargo, while above, fighter pilots took off to protect convoys from U-boats. It was messy, dangerous, and brilliantly effective. These floating hybrids couldn't launch large planes, but their small swordfish aircraft were enough to spot submarines and force them underwater. And each time a U-boat dived, a convoy lived a little longer. Britain had found an answer, not perfect, but fast, cheap, and life-saving. The idea was working. Yet, as the war raged on, the Royal Navy dreamed of something even stranger, a project that could change naval warfare forever, a ship made of ice. We'll dive into that unbelievable plan and the man who tried to make it real.
So, a ship made of ice. Sounds insane, right? But in 1942, to the British, it sounded like salvation. The idea came from a man named Geoffrey Pike, a brilliant, eccentric inventor working for a top-secret division of British intelligence. Pike believed that if Britain couldn't build carriers fast enough with steel, then it should use something the North Atlantic had plenty of: frozen water. He called it Project Habakkuk, named after a biblical prophet who once said, "Be astonished, for I will do a work in your days that you will not believe." And truly, no one believed it. Pike's vision was colossal, a floating airbase made of a special reinforced ice called picrate, a mix of water and wood pulp that was surprisingly strong, bullet-resistant, and could float for months without melting. It could be built anywhere cold enough, using almost no steel. Imagine a ship 600 meters long, 100 wide, bigger than anything ever built, with dozens of aircraft on deck and walls thick enough to stop torpedoes. Churchill himself read the proposal and scribbled one word in the margin: brilliant. Soon tests began in secret. Engineers built a prototype on a frozen lake in Alberta, Canada. It actually worked. The ice block refused to melt even when hit by bullets. The dream seemed within reach. But reality, as always, had its limits. Keeping such a giant ship frozen in the middle of the ocean required massive refrigeration systems and mountains of energy. The cost skyrocketed. By 1944, Britain's resources were drained, and steel carriers, faster and more practical, were already rolling off American shipyards. And so the ice carrier melted away, both literally and figuratively. The project was quietly canceled. The dream of Habakkuk drifted back into myth. But even if it never sailed, The spirit behind it, that raw creativity born from crisis, became a symbol of British resilience. When the world thought they had nothing left, they found another way. Whether in the form of a wooden deck, an oil tanker with wings, or an impossible ship of ice, they refused to surrender the seas. In Part 3, we'll uncover how these alternative carriers, from humble merchant ships to failed ice fortresses, changed the future of naval warfare, and why their legacy still echoes in today's oceans. If you're fascinated by forgotten wartime inventions, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment what secret project you want me to cover next.
So what happened after the ice melted and the war moved on? Did those strange British experiments, the merchant carriers, the floating airfields, the frozen dreams, just fade away? Not quite. The lessons learned from those desperate years reshaped naval warfare forever. The Mac ships, born from necessity, proved that even small, slow ships could protect convoys when equipped with aircraft. That simple truth became the foundation of the escort carrier, a class of ships that turned the tide of the Battle of the Atlantic. By the end of the war, dozens of these compact carriers roamed the seas, swatting away submarines and bombers. They were the unsung guardians of the merchant fleet, rough, creaking, often overlooked, but vital. And as for Project Habakkuk, the ice ship that never was, it left behind something more powerful than steel or ice, an idea. The belief that when conventional tools fail, imagination can still win wars. That philosophy carried forward. After the war, Britain, and later other nations, began designing new generations of light carriers and through-deck cruisers, small, versatile ships built on the same principle: cheaper, faster, adaptable. The DNA of those early wartime experiments lived on, not in the form of pykrete, but in the spirit of improvisation. Think about it. Today's helicopter carriers, amphibious assault ships, and drone launch platforms all trace their roots back to those years when Britain was forced to ask impossible questions and dared to answer them. From rusty cargo ships to frozen titans, each attempt told the same story, a story of survival, creativity, and unbreakable will. When the empire had no steel, it used ice. When it had no time, it used courage. And that's what makes the alternative carriers not just machines of war, but symbols of human resilience. Thank you for sailing with me through this forgotten chapter of history. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Battle Echoes, and share your thoughts below. What secret wartime invention should we explore next? Your ideas keep these echoes alive. Until next time, stay curious and never stop exploring the stories history tried to sink.